Jinx, how's it going with you in the life today with COVID-19 and all this stuff? I'm sure everything's changed for you because you're touring a lot too. Recently, 2019, I guess.
It was pretty disappointing because we did have to cancel a big tour that was, it was starting in the end of spring, and then there was a break, and then we were going to go through the fall, and, you just start to getting your footage again and just kind of speeding off into touring days, and it kind of got cut short. So it was difficult, and I mean it's still kind of difficult now. It seems like you're just maybe getting over this, but do we really know? I don't really know.
Well, hopefully everything goes back to normal, like let's say this summer, because everybody needs it.
That's for sure. Jeez, I think everybody's gone crazy. Funny enough, though, that I've been busier than usual through all this. Lots of merch was sold, and I was just kind of wondering. I thought people weren't really working that much, and it was amazing how much merch I sold over the whole pandemic time.
Yeah, certainly with the economy, people are still buying Coven stuff, so that's perfect.
I know. I was like, wow, where are they getting the dough to do that?
But also,
see, we did have a box set out, and the CD book just came out, so maybe that was it. But I felt kind of bad, I thought, oh, don't spend your last dollars on this, please.
I think too that people want to take time in discovering the arts and entertainment side things right now. Their life is different, and I got a few dollars. I'll buy half a Century of Witchcraft. So it's good. I mean, I did it.
Well, oh, you did. Well, there's a lot of interesting stuff in there. I mean, what else is there to do if you're stuck at home? I guess you can try a few rituals and see if that'll help. I mean, believe you me, this whole last year and a half, I have been doing as much sending out what I can send out into the universe to get this thing over with, because this is something that, people aren't used to, and it was kind of a shock to me anyway, so it must have been a shock to everyone else too, right?
Absolutely. Jinx, let's say, for half a Century of Witchcraft, like the album, I bought the CD copies of it, and I find the quality is very fresh and just clear. Is it, let's say, better than the original masters?
We did go through and we did clean up the entire thing. Yeah, we did do that. It took hours and hours in the studio. The current keyboard player in Coven owns a studio, which is real handy. So, yeah, we did. We spent a lot of time on doing that. Yeah, it's true.
I mean, when I'm listening to this stuff, it's like certainly the white album cover there, with the white out and all that stuff. The songs and the song structures on this, it's pretty amazing. Considering from the '69 release to the '71 release, whole change. Certainly with piano and stuff. The band at that time decided to put more piano in it. Would you say? Or, just to make it more friendly?
Well, actually, there was a change of keyboard player from first album to second album. The keyboard player that we had was more jazz-oriented, a fairly well-known studio player, so he could just play anything. And what we did... When the witchcraft thing was banned so many places, and we thought, well, this just isn't going to go anywhere, because this was my life. I mean, the occult has always been in my life and ancestry, and I don't know why I mixed music and that at the beginning. I just felt like it was just something I wanted to do, and then when it was banned, I thought that maybe I should take another direction for a while, because it was very hard to get across what I was doing, because this was before all the other bands started coming out with occult things, which is weird. Here we come out with it, we get stopped, and then while we're changing up, there's a whole bunch of them waiting in line to come out with that. So there was another keyboard player, so we were we were actually doing jazz quite a bit in Los Angeles. We had a studio in the house, and we were doing a lot of jazz, so that's probably why it does sound more like that.
Yeah, because you certainly see the difference. I mean, it's a lot more, piano itself, not keyboard in a sense. So it's
exactly.
Yeah.
And I mean, I was a music fan as much as I was into the occult. So if I was going to be stopped doing music because I was going to put my occult background into it, then I was going to change up. I was definitely going to change up until I could get back to the occult material, because I had studied opera also. I had a scholarship at age 13 to university, and so I wasn't going to stop doing music if they were going to stop doing stop me doing the content. So I changed up for a few minutes.
Yeah. And also, I've seen and read stuff, about your background with your great grandfather, let's say, that had a massive library. Was he like a university librarian, or where does his background come from? And that makes to you.
Honestly, the whole thing goes all the way back, and I mean all the way back. It was amazing. I've done my ancestry. I got on that ancestry and started linking it back, and it goes way back to like 10. The year 1053.
Okay.
And all the way back to Celt and Welsh kings that were into the occult, into France, where I'm related to Louis the 15th, not 14th or 16th, but the 15th, and he was also into the occult. And it's amazing. So it just wasn't my grandfather or great grandfather. My grandfather was actually the lieutenant governor of Indiana, so he wasn't a librarian. He was probably more of a politician.
Okay. Do you have a?
But they just had a weird big old house. That was definitely a mansion, but it was on a farm. Now, of course, it's all developed, and they had obias there to help with the farm, and that they had brought up from New Orleans. And it just stayed in that time period. When I was growing up and I was a little child, it stayed. It was in that same period, like maybe mid to late 1800s. And my great aunts were just the same thing too. And you'd walk into that house, and it was almost like opening a book in a library, but for real, And I'm writing the book about it right now, and it's so funny because I really wish I could go back to that, because it was just an amazing time. And the Abias also were into hoodoo. So not only did I get the magic background from my family, I also got a hoodoo background. So that's why I guess it came out in the music.
Like Jinx said, let's say, where's those books today? Where did the collection end up? Because I'm sure it's a lot of books. Like, I mean, is it like a general type of collection, or is it, certain subjects, you collected, or, just mix match?
A lot of them were old books, and a lot of them were handwritten, but what really horribly happened, I had already pretty much moved on, and I was heading toward Chicago and Los Angeles, and they tore the house down, and I never knew what happened to the books or the contents of the house, and I just was very upset about it. They built a shopping mall where the mansion sat, and the farm, ground, and then they developed that into homes, and I never asked, I never knew, I was never told what happened to it, and I was very upset about it.
Well, if there's a university close to there, it might have been donated to that library. Who knows? Well,
they might have, and that's a good point. I'm going to look into that. Thank you for mentioning that. I never thought of that, because there's one of the largest Masonic lodges is in Indianapolis, where I was born, and I went there when I came back to take care of my father who was ill, and I told them who I was, and I told them that my grandfather and my father were both 33-degree Masons, and they took me down the basement into this big, huge, like you talk about, like kind of like a library, but they were huge. How do I even describe it? I've never even seen these. They were huge things that you flip back to see all the pictures of the 33rd Masons, but I mean, it was life-size, you know, and he stood there and pulled these back, and my father and my grandfather were in there, and that was like almost like a book. So I'm assuming that possibly that's where the library went, and I'm going to check that out. Thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, usually libraries do collect books. Like I personally work at a university library, so I know how these things go. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm going to do that, and I'm actually going to go back to the shrine. It's like I said, I think it's one of the biggest ones in the world, if not the biggest one for the Masons, and I'm going to take some pictures around that thing because I've never seen anything like it. It was almost like some kind of industrial display, you know, where you go and grab this big thing and pull it over, like a big book, though, almost. And they had the pictures of them in there. So, you know, that's a good, thank you for that. That's a good point. I'm going to do that.
You're very welcome. And, I mean, it's your family's books, you know, so you should look into that. Very important. And
yeah, because I only did end up with a few magic books that I was given before the house was torn down. So I do have a few, but I think most of them are out there in some form or another. They've been reprinted, or I don't have any of the handwritten books. I don't think. Honestly, my stuff has been in storage off and on for so many years now because I've moved so many times. That I don't know what I have, and I actually lost quite a few things in a storage locker that they broke into. And it was so funny too because I had a skull in there, and I had some of the tables and things, and they actually the police actually called my father years ago, and they said they had to confiscate the skull, that you couldn't have dead body parts, and it was out of the time of that movie. I can't remember what it was. Same thing, where they opened a storage cabinet and there was a limousine in there with a skull. Do you remember that? Jodie Foster, the Silence of the Lambs.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And I thought, oh, is that funny? You know, they were going to arrest me for having a skull, but you can have a skull. I mean, you know, it just can't be one that was recently gotten, I guess.
I guess.
It was a very old skull.
Let's say, you know, going back to music, how did the original band get along in the studio, you know, making, you know, the progress to writing the songs and just plowing through it and making classics? We were a group of people that always got along. We didn't have fights or arguments over anything. I mean, it just went very smoothly, and it was always really good. So, you know, the guitar player would write parts, and then I'd write parts, and then we would like put them together, and it just seemed to be very smooth. And we're starting to do the same thing. We're trying to get a new album out, and this is, of course, with a new set of people that I've had. Actually, they're not so new now. I've had them for 5 years, but we're doing the same thing. We're going in the studio actually in a few days to do a new album. Okay. So I'm really excited about it. And you guys are going to stick in the same style, you know, as Coven always has been?
Yeah, very much so, yeah.
Okay. So you're not going to move up and, you know, let's try different stuff and go maybe more pop this time?
No, because we've been doing the show since 2017. And it just goes over really well. People want to know about it. People want to hear it live. They're so excited that they can even hear it live. They never expected me to get a band together and go back out live. And we're very true to, you know, the original stuff. We didn't like try to update it or change it or follow styles now that people have, of course, followed me from. You know what I mean? So so I'm certainly not going to do a style that somebody started because they had a witchcraft album. So no, we're staying pretty true to it, and it's nice though because I had so many tapes of writers' tapes over the years that I wasn't able to release. Okay. And it's kind of like nice to get to do that, but it's a little bit more maybe modern in the way that maybe there's more information released, because I didn't want to release everything so much back in the day, and a different slant to it, a more personal slant to it, which is nice.
Jinx, let's say the rarity CD, or LP that you have included in the half a century of witchcraft. Is it like a whole different bunch of errors in there? Because we do have the demos, from the first album, and let's take a song like "Out of Luck." Where's that error? Which errors that is?
Out of Luck is actually. Let me think for that a minute. It's definitely the beginning of LA, the early 70s. But what I did with that, it wasn't finished. Okay. And so I took it in the studio around 2013 and added on to it. So it's a combination of 1970 and 2013, honestly.
So that's Steve Ross on drums?
Yes, uh-huh.
Wow. From what I dissected out of that song, it's got this type of dance groove, and it's a mixture of stuff a lot of people haven't heard yet. I mean, the song's not on the internet. You can only see it if they check out Coven, live at, I don't know where, online, and it's going to be mixed in there maybe because you do play it live.
Yeah, it's actually the first full song. I mean, there's recorded, the chants and everything before, and I'm always in the coffin and come out, but it is the first song. And it's amazing how the fact that it wasn't on Witchcraft, that it's so well received. It's like one of the audience's favorite songs. So.
Yeah, because when that dance groove comes in, with the drums and, cowbell and all that, it is pretty epic.
Yeah, it's interesting to mix a song that's been done and then put something else on it so that it spans decades, It literally spans decades because it was never finished.
That's good to know, and let's say a song like Quiet and Dead, Ended Dead. What era did that one come out? Same 1970 type era?
Honestly, hate to even admit this stuff, but The Quick and the Dead was a demo for Elektra Records. The Doors were in the studio next to us while we were recording, and it was engineered by Fraser Mohawk, who also engineered Nico's Marble Index album. So it comes from that, and you know what? I didn't add anything to that.
Yeah.
Nothing. It's live. It's not even overdubbed.
What I've noticed about the song, the Quiet and the Dead, you got similarities of Hush from Deep Purple and echoes of Pink Floyd with that keyboard in there. Have you noticed that in the middle of the song?
Yeah, probably because I actually was very close with John Lord for many years. We were like a couple on and off when he was in the same city I was in. So yeah, that's possible.
Yeah, it was what I'm hearing out of it, and I love it. It's interesting when you listen to your CDs and you're starting to know the music inside out, and it's good. It's a whole different journey of music.
Yeah, it is. I kind of wish there were more maybe groups out there doing that now. I mean, they kind of have gone into this kind of fast and furious and gruff voice kind of thing, and actually the Occult is not like that. The Occult is actually eerie. It's not like you're building a building or something. It's not like that. So I'd like to hear more people doing that, actually.
going on, let's say, more people doing stuff, do you ever go on YouTube, check out the cover songs, of yourself and Coven, that other people perform, and what do you think of that stuff? It's pretty good, some of it.
Really? Well, I didn't really know. I've heard a couple of Wicked Woman's, but I haven't really heard anything else. Why? What else is out there?
I don't know. I think there's one for Black Sabbath, and
oh, is there? Oh, I'm gonna look that up then.
yeah. Myself, I'm producing stuff, and I decided to learn some of your songs, and
Oh, really? Okay.
yeah, it's pretty epic. Let's say the song Black Sabbath, and yeah, just incredible, the notes and notations you guys use.
You know what I did notice when I had to put a new band together, because obviously everybody was getting older and they were doing other things, but for some reason I didn't stop doing it. And when I was putting a new band together and trying out musicians, there were so many musicians that could not even play these songs. And I thought, well, are they that difficult? You know?
Yeah.
And I guess it turned out that they are, like something like Dignitaries of Hell. I mean, I had like people come in and they didn't even sound like the same song. Mm-hmm. And I had to go through many musicians and, drop some along the way to get the right people that I really feel like these guys, they really embrace it. They don't necessarily understand it seems like, but they really like playing it because it's something different that they've never played before. And I didn't realize the songs were that complicated, but they are kind of, aren't they?
They are. Certainly, if you listen...
I'll tell you one thing. They're you got to remember that this is like over 50 years ago that I sang those. To do these live, they're very difficult to sing.
Yeah, I bet. I mean, you guys are playing in standard tuning, and you listen to what Oz is playing on bass. It's pretty... original, let's just say. It's a unique style, and Steve, it's out of this world, this stuff, and I do.
And what? Go ahead.
I do enjoy what I read in the booklet there, like a scholarly band, like this scholars, well studied in music and lyrics. It shows. Right.
And what's interesting, because a lot of people don't know still about the Witchcraft album, or if they do, they ignore it. And this whole thing has been built from that day forward of what is occult music or heavy metal or doom metal or whatever you want to call it. When I did that, there was no genre for this. You got to remember that.
Right.
And there were no rule books. There were no anything. And so that's what came out of my occult background. I mean, this is authentic stuff. This isn't like, okay, we want to be this band. These days, they put a band together, okay, we want to be doom metal. Well, then they follow rules, I guess, to be doom metal, but something else came out after we did it that kind of was off of the sort of ethereal, scary type of situation. You know what I'm saying? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah.
That was more like, okay, Satan is going to come and get you, instead of, no, we're not going to talk about that. We're going to talk about ethereal things, like seeing real ghosts and people that have passed and they talk to you and pull your feet at night and, real things that happen and real spells and real OB of people that, take chickens and, they, sing around a circle. And I mean, this goes into such history that I wish there was a little bit more of that now, but I guess it just kind of went in the other direction because we were banned. I mean, we were totally buried. And I'm going to go into that in the book about what happened. These other groups, some of them, I won't mention it, but they were on the same label as us, and since they dropped us in the Manson situation, and we got angry because they didn't promote us anymore because they were afraid to. They got letters, and we had problems with the government and being banned. They thought, well, we'll get some other bands that are not quite as heavy as this and not quite as authentic, and we can still make $1 off of it, because I never went into the business to make money. My family had money. That was not my reason. It was all for people who were interested in the subject matter.
Right.
So it was a scholarly work. It wasn't, hey, I want to get in show business and be a big, rock star. I mean, because that kind of almost didn't exist so much either. My contemporaries were all the first rockers, Hendrix and Zeppelin. I mean, I have a history on that situation too, which is interesting in the book. That I think people will find shocking how many connections I did have to the early rock people. So it's been a pretty interesting journey, and I'm glad that you liked it. I'm glad that you enjoyed the box. You said you had the CD set, right?
I got the CD set, yeah.
Yeah,
That's
yeah. I got a few of them. They're having a hard time sending them to me from Germany because of the COVID.
Okay, yeah.
I only got one box, and so I'm waiting for the rest of them.
No, I find that the box set is very well done, and the pictures, and just it's a book basically that you can put in your bookshelf and just look at it, and sometimes play it. I play in my car. I enjoy it. It's good.
That's cool. I like that.
Your music's being played in Nova Scotia. So that's pretty cool.
Great. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Let's say this is another thing, because there's not many interviews of you that exist or that I've ever seen. Martha Quinn of MTV brings up in 1986 your album and shows it to Tony Iommi. That famous footage. You've seen that.
Of course.
Yeah. It's like, that's pretty interesting, and it goes and it creates this whole big circle of energy for you guys, to bring it back in the spotlight, it seems, from that date. Even though we go back, and the internet helps a lot, but that did help.
It does, but the thing of it is, I did get a lot of enemies from this because, of course, these bands that came after, they went into big fans and big coliseums, and the whole situation of some sort of occult rock became so huge after I broke into it, broke the mold, and said, okay, you can do this in music. And so people, when they went back and said, oh, what, this band did this stuff before this other band or these other bands, they didn't like that. When kids grow up, they have their heroes, and that's that.
Oh, of course.
So I mean, I was getting like hate blogs, and we hate Jinx Dawson. I'm like, you don't get it. They really didn't want to absorb the fact that history was what it was, and what happened. That's why I'm doing a book to explain everything. And what did happen, it was like a record industry situation, and the other bands don't really want to say anything about it, and I don't blame them, but they've got their fans, and that's good, and they can like that, but there was a lot of copying back in the day. And so I don't know, it's just the way it happened. They always say the first one that goes down the path is never remembered. It's always all the people that go down the path. And, we definitely put footprints in the sand before anybody else. So what can you do? But it is. I know Martha, and also, this is funny, too. You mentioned that because she got that album, Stiv Bators from the Dead Boys. You're familiar with them, right?
Actually, no.
No? You're not familiar with the Dead Boys?
No.
Well, look them up. Big band, but the problem was he died and a car hit him in Paris, so the band wasn't that long-lived, but they were like a punk band.
Okay.
And he's the one that I gave him the Witchcraft album, because we played with them in 1980 at the Whiskey A Go-Go.
Okay.
And I gave him the album, and then subsequently he lived in New York, so he gave it to Martha Quinn at some point, and she was so blown away with it that she was going to bring it up on the show. And just in the past week, a photographer that took pictures at the Whiskey with myself and Stiv Bators I haven't released them yet. I got to figure out, because photographers, want to get paid for their photographs and whatnot, so I have to figure out how I'm going to deal with it and post it. But there's these intimate pictures of Stiv Bators and I at the whiskey, and it's just funny that you mentioned that because it's all tied in,
Well,
but yeah, look him up.
I shall.
The Dead Boys. Yeah, look him up. And unfortunately, he was hit by a car in Paris, and he died. And big punk, influencer for sure.
The name sounds a lot punk. So yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
And that was when in the 80s we had so many lawsuits against us for so many things. For the title song to the movie that I did as a session, that was just a session that I did. That wasn't really a Coven thing. And then some of the Witchcraft, and I had to kind of go underground, and I still wanted to play live. I was living in Los Angeles, and so I cut my bangs on my hair, and I put my hair up in a limo cap, which was our family's limo driver's cap that I stole from him when I was like 13 or 14. And, put punkier clothes on and still took Steve Ross. He was the drummer. And, funny enough, Glenn Cornick from Jethro Tull played bass. No, it was a good band. Michael Monarch from Steppenwolf played guitar.
Okay.
And so, all these guys were big guys from other bands. And then I had this lady keyboard player that was the best keyboard player I've ever heard, and anybody's ever heard.
What's her name?
Linda Nardini. I have no idea where she is now. She was a keyboard player in an orchestra.
Okay.
So symphony, and so she was just really good. As far as playing, so that's where these pictures were taken. And so that's how Martha Quinn fits in.
What's the name of that band you're just describing? With those supergroup.
The Equalizers.
Equalizer. Wow, interesting.
Yeah, and we never really did a record release per se, but we played a lot in LA, and then we went to New York, and we just never got around to making an album. Even though there's videos on YouTube of the band playing live, and I have a full set of the Equalizers, and it was a punk band because I didn't want to stop playing. Music, like I said at the beginning of us talking, I didn't want to be stop music just because of not doing the occult material, So if I was getting stopped everywhere, I was going to go ahead and play something else until I could get back to it.
And that's good. You do have to keep productive, and play music. And why can't everybody just get along and just, have fun, and just like that?
I like that. Exactly. Why did they say, if you are in this genre, because again, you got to remember there were like 5 genres when I started: country, classical, rock. There wasn't 1,000 genres. It's kind of like, if you do something else, that's not cool,
Yeah, but let's jump here a little bit. American Bandstand. There's nothing really on YouTube, but it's supposed that the stuff does exist. How many times you play that?
Oh God! If you ever find it, let me know, because I was pretty upset when I was really good friends with Dick Clark, very good friends, and whenever we played the show, because we did have a hit single, and every time I said, look, if you get stuck and a band doesn't show up or the plane doesn't show up or something, we will run over there and do the show. And we did that 6 or 7 times. And that's how we became really good friends. And I called to try to locate those tapes, and they said that back in the day, they would just cover up tapes because they didn't think there'd be any archival, excitement about it.
Right.
And kind of that's true. Now everybody's like, we want to go back and see this and that. At that time, I was like, we're on to the next thing, and, we're not going to save it. And so that's what I was told. I don't know if it was the truth or not. I know there was a big fire over at Universal. I don't know if that was involved.
Yeah, but
you're familiar with that, right? The fire,
yes.
all the masters, and
But what's funny about that is sometimes, let's say years later, I've just magically found my master tapes. So it's never lost. There's something somewhere. Let me just say that.
well, if you ever find out, because I would love to have a copy of any of those. Wow.
But you can.
I mean, it was.
How many times you play? Let's say the show, just to make sure.
Well, the regular show probably 6 or 7 times.
Okay.
But then there was also a show that he hosted that was called A Touch of Gold, that he had for a few years, where they had the gold record winners of that year on the show, and we did that show also.
Okay.
So yeah, where is all this stuff?
Well, that's what we always ask people. Sometimes it's there. You ever hear the story of Festival Express from Canada?
No.
No? Well, Festival Express never existed, the video.
Okay.
Okay? It came out in 1970. It was an express festival on a train. Mash McCann, Grateful Dead, and Janis Joplin. They're touring through Canada. One day...
Wow, okay.
It's been filmed, but nobody ever seen the video. One day in 2012, 2013, somebody goes to a yard sale in Ontario, Canada, finds these reel-to-reel tapes, buys them for $5 or $2, whatever.
I know, it's incredible. They're worth $1 million, probably.
Yeah, so basically he's got the master tapes of all the footage, puts it up, looks it up, and says, "Oh my God, what is this? This is Festival Express." The guy's a millionaire now, because then he sells his stuff to the record company. Everything's great. Now we get to see the documentary. So everything is there. It's just we gotta find the stuff.
Well, there's something else I'm looking for too. I had 2 storage cabinets in Los Angeles, and when we lived in what I called Coven House, it was sort of a mansion up in the Hollywood Hills above the Universal Amphitheater. This is when all these bands used to come over to our house, and I mean, a lot of it was, ceremonial. A lot of it was for sexual reasons. There were lots of girls there. There were lots of famous musicians coming in and out of the house. And I had a hobby at that time of doing Super 8 films.
Okay.
And I had a little Super 8 camera, and I had a little cutter, and I was constantly filming. And these films have so many people on them, like Alvin Lee jamming with Coven, and we had a studio in there too with the equipment set up. And we did have a ceremony room. I mean, it was very occultish. We would do ceremonies all the time. And these bands were just curious, what are they doing up in that house? And people would just go in the door, not even knock, come in. I would wake up in the morning, and there would literally be, 30 people in the house. And I didn't even know half of them except of the famous people. And ELP was in there. Part of Zappa's band was in there. Deep Purple was there. I mean, I have all these people on video, okay?
Wow.
And then it's in the storage cabinet that somebody opened and stole. And I'm hoping what the story you just said, instead of throwing them away and going, oh, these are probably picnic, videos of kids and stuff,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm hoping that maybe somebody, and at one point, like when I first went on the internet, I don't know, about 10, 15 years ago, whatever it's been now, somebody said they did have them. And I was like, oh my God. And then they were going to sell them to me, and they totally acted like they did not have them. So I don't know if they were trying to scam me, just to get money and then not send anything.
Right.
But if you ever hear about that,
I'll be looking.
I am looking for those tapes.
Yeah, I do enjoy hearing this type of stuff, because Randy Rhoads of Ozzy Osbourne. There's like, where's all the video footage of that guy?
Right.
And there is some, but it's just not been released yet. So people just don't have the technology sometimes to take this stuff and post it online. And
right, and then like you said, they don't even know what it is. Like when you said garage sales, I immediately thought of my Super 8 things, like, oh, they probably sold a whole just box of stuff in a garage sale, and it could be sitting in somebody else's garage now, you know? And that really bothers me. I was so angry when that happened. That's the same situation. The skull was in there too, and the police called, and you know. So I have no idea who ended up with it. I'll tell you what, the sergeant in Los Angeles ended up with a skull, and it's on his desk still, probably.
Let's just say,
Jinx, that's not nice.
No. Let's say if it's meant to be, the footage will surface sometimes in here to 100 years. So
I'd like to see it.
Well, we'll maybe see it on the internet if we're actually inside the internet someday.
Yeah, all these sex tapes will probably go on the internet when I die. You know what I mean? I won't be able to defend myself at all.
No. James, let's say a few more questions here because I don't want to take all your time, and I'm enjoying this too, just so you know. Elvis Presley calling you, that is a pretty immense thing. Imagine having the chance working with him, how your career would have ended. Up, I mean...
Incredible.
I mean, wow.
How did you even know that?
I knew that because I checked an interview of you. There's one interview I seen from Ghost Occult type magazine guy.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I guess I did talk about it one time. No, that was so incredible, and I was like, dumbfounded because we did record Jailhouse Rock on one of the albums,
right.
And I always did like Elvis Presley, and I didn't even think it was him at first. I thought somebody was messing with me, and they were like imitating his voice, and then I finally realized it was him, and I definitely agreed to it. They wanted to do Jailhouse Rock again because he wanted to update his situation. He wanted to do that and look more, modern, I guess. And so we were getting ready to do it, and then he just dies on me. I was like, I wasn't happy about it. I wasn't happy with him, and that footage would have been incredible. It would have been a great opportunity. And funny enough, one of my boyfriends that I had about a year after that, he ended up working for Colonel Parker.
Wow.
And so, we talked about it, and the Colonel was upset, and that was Elvis's next move. Him and the Colonel, that's what they were going to do, was do a video with me and him and Jailhouse Rock.
Wow.
So that was his ending thoughts, so that kind of is emotional for me.
I'm sure it is. I mean, he is the king of rock and roll.
Absolutely.
Basically invented it in 1956. So
yes, he did.
And you're in his thoughts. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, I really wish it had happened, and I don't know. Kind of the story of my life a bit. Things start and then they stop, and I always wondered about it too, in a way, because I always thought the occult was running with me, but. With religious situations, sometimes it doesn't, because people don't want that out there. And I always just kind of think, oh, geez, I always had bands at the time always say, why are you doing that? Just be a regular band. You're going to have problems with that. And I didn't think I would, but that would have been interesting because Elvis was kind of religious.
Oh, yeah. But sometimes mix and match like that do work. So
he was really cool on the phone. I was so excited when I finally realized it was really him. And that was it. I never talked to him again after that.
That's sad.
That was it.
But things happen like that for a reason, and
it
is what it is. One more thing here. I want to go on the whiteout front cover, for the self-titled album. Why is the back album cover for US release different than the Canadian one? Because you do mention in your box set that it wasn't published, the back cover, but on the on the Canadian version of the album, it is there.
Oh, it is?
Yeah, for the Canadian version that came out in 71, it was the image with the band with the Marshall stacks.
Really? Would you send me a picture of that?
Oh, certainly.
I'm shocked because
It's the only one that I've seen, because every else it's all that black image there.
Right, because that was another lawsuit with the man that produced the Billy Jack films. Are you familiar with the Billy Jack films?
I'm only familiar with the song that you played.
Okay.
Yeah.
It was a huge movie in the United States, and he had a series of what he called Billy Jack movies, and
right.
he was the star in the films. And he did a lawsuit because we wanted to go back to the Occult situation, and he was trying to pull us into a pop situation. And he was going to replace the band because somehow he thought he managed it, and he had 51% of the situation. So that whole album cover was changed. Mm-hmm. Our faces were whited out, and the whole background was gone. It was all occulty looking, and he changed it, and then he took off the back for the United States. So I didn't know the original back stayed there. Wow.
So
in Canada.
Why were you guys whited out to start with? Like the faces?
It was a lawsuit move. He was going to try to take the name Coven and replace all the members and try to change the situation, because he wanted, the song became so huge, and the song actually made the movie. Grassroots made the song big on the radio, and he was very egotistical, and he was jealous that the song was selling the movie at Warner Brothers, because they had already dropped the movie, and then they pulled it back out because of the song, the title song, which we did. And so he wanted to control that name, because the name was on the film of doing the song, and it was like the song was getting bigger than the movie, and he was very jealous about it. So he was literally going to replace us all and do a new band, and it was just stupid stuff. I mean, he was not a music person, you know. He was not a music producer.
And
he was a movie maker, so he just didn't know anything about it. So.
And eventually replace you as well.
Yeah. Well, he tried not to do that. He tried to get rid of the band first, and he was going to try to keep me. He kept saying, "Oh no, you should be a solo artist," and I was like, "No, I don't do that. I want my band Coven," which is Coven in Europe. They pronounce it Coven. Right. And I said, "No, I don't. I'm not interested in that." And I think that made him mad. And that was his original move. You're right. But it didn't work. But you know, I went through years of lawsuits after it, so that didn't help getting out product or doing anything. But you know what? I think that maybe my path was just, you know, for information. I don't really think my path was to be some kind of, you know, worshipped rock singer, you know. and I'm not sorry about that. You know, I don't mind sort of lurking in the shadows. I've always been hidden in plain sight. I mean, I've always been out there, but it's okay with me to be that.
Well, there's people that follow you, and it's shown, you know, so it's good. But that is terrible for you know, a producer of a film, something, trying to do that, you know, with a
right. No, it was pretty bad. Warner Brothers never wanted to work with him again, and I think we were probably on the blacklist along with him because we were associated with him for a couple of years.
Right.
Because Hollywood's a very tight town as far as the business. I really don't know right now because I haven't been there for a while. But when I was there, it was very tight. I lived out there for about 25 years, and you know, if you were associated with something that didn't go right, then they were like mad at you too.
Yeah, and I found that, you know, through the music industry, you know, throughout the years, you got to be humble and nice to everybody and just respect everybody. And if you can keep that going, sometimes your career keeps on going, you know, smoothly. So it's...
Exactly. Yeah, and you shouldn't try to make up things or change things. It is what it is, and you'll always be called out for it if somebody finds out different, you know. So, no, you're right. And exactly,
we shouldn't forget, too, how much jealousy exists. That is one thing, so, yeah.
And the money situations. people want to make sure that big money is not stopped coming toward them. And again, I was never interested in that because I came from money, so I didn't even think about it. I wasn't trying to get any more than I had already. It just didn't occur to me. Maybe I should have thought about that a little more, though.
You should have maybe looked for the money first, and then everything would have been fine.
Yeah, especially, with Coven, what else is going to happen? I mean, we don't even know. I'm so angry at this planet. I'm so angry at people not going along with things to try to save this, too, Save the whole planet. It's just...
Yeah.
I wish there was more I could do.
There's a big thing called money, and, just be positive, and then things will happen, so it's good.
Right.
The earth will still be here. That's all that we know.
Well, that's definitely good.
And the universe as well. One final thing here. Let's go back on those 6 times you're talking that you play, let's say with Dick Clark show. What songs were played, just to make sure? Wicked Woman, let's say, and...
Wicked Woman was, and One Tin Soldier. That was usually the only 2 that I remember.
But it had been played multiple different times, so there has to be copies that exist.
Right. I mean, it was different performances. We showed up at the studio and did a new show.
Yeah, different wardrobe, etc.
Yeah. Well, probably not. I mean, I always wear black, so
yeah,
the wardrobe probably looked the same.
But let's say different high heels that day, or a different T-shirt. I don't know.
A different ring,
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah.
A different inverted rosary.
Okay.
I have about 100 of those. So.
Well, you see, that is what we need to look for, all the fans out there, and just keep digging. And I mean, not just for your music, but digging for any archival footage. It is what it's what the people need to see. It's what makes people happy.
Exactly. And if you're really telling everyone that, the footage that I took it ended up in little yellow boxes. There were like 100 little yellow boxes with tape in them,
My God.
And that was the little camera that I took, tape from. So if they see a whole bunch of those, grab them.
Well, hopefully they surfaced in Nova Scotia somewhere, and at a flea market on a Sunday morning.
Well, yeah, if you find them, let me know.
Don't worry.
But definitely send me that picture of the album, because obviously I see that things are released differently in different places. So
yeah. Well, one last thing here too. Did you ever play Canada in your history?
No, and it was on the list. And frankly, I'll tell you why I think that it got pulled from the list. Because I think your visas, tell me if I'm mistaken or not, because I want to know if this is true. But if somebody had a DUI in the United States, they're not allowed in Canada. Is that true?
I don't think that would be true. I don't know.
Well, that's why they told us we had some things and we couldn't get there because one of our players had a DUI at one point.
Maybe at one point it was. The laws were stricter, I guess. So, yeah, maybe.
But I mean like in the last 4 years.
Oh, in the last 4 years?
Yeah.
Oh.
No, because the guys I have are all very young. They're around 25, and one guy got a DUI, and they said we couldn't go. And they also said Mexico City. We were booked in Mexico City, so last year, the year before COVID started, and we were trying to figure out, okay, we have to get another drummer to replace for that show before we go down to South America, because we've been down to South America a couple of times, and it's fantastic down there.
Mm-hmm.
So if you look it up on Google, you can find that there's a short list of countries that don't allow you work visas if you've had a DUI.
And was Canada on that?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay. So it is.
So that's why we haven't been there. We've been asked to go there, and I've been wanting to go there, come up and see you guys a whole lot. And if you find out that it's changed, will you call me?
Yeah, you'll get a call. Don't worry about that. Well, thank you very much for your time. I do appreciate that.
Well,
and
thank you.
I do see there's not many interviews of you, and I thought, I really need to do a great interview with you and, get some stuff answered. Certainly in the music aspect of things. Not going the witchcraft side of stuff. Let's go to the music stuff. That's what interests me.
Right. Well, thank you, because you did ask questions that I haven't answered before, so I was like, okay, I got to remember what the answer is.
Yeah, and you're a lovely lady, and just keep up the great work, producing stuff, and your fans, I'm sure, on Facebook, etc., do adore you. I know that.
Well, thank you. That's really kind. I mean, it keeps me going for sure.
Well, you have yeah.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say you have a lovely week, and then weekend and all that stuff. But yeah, what?
I was going to tell you many hails and stay magic.
Thank you very much, Jinx. You are excellent, and many hails to you as well, and many cheers to you.
And many hails to all your audience too, and to Canada.
All right, keep in touch, and we'll talk soon.
I will, yeah. Okay.
Right.
Hails.
Hails. Bye.
Bye.